Hi, I'm Drex DeFord, a recovering CIO from several large health systems and a longtime cyber advisor and strategist for some of the world's most innovative security companies. And now I'm president of This Week Health's 229 Cyber and Risk community, and this is UnHack the podcast, a mostly plain English, mostly non-technical show about cybersecurity and risk and the people and process and technology making healthcare more secure. And now this episode of UnHack the podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Drex, and it's UnHack the Podcast, and I'm here with Jim Bowie from Tampa General. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
How's everything going down there this morning? All relatively quiet on the Eastern Front?
It's not blazing hot down here yet in Tampa, so it's okay. Summer's starting to rear its head where I wonder why I live here, but for now it's okay.
Got it. Hey, let's start by just tell me a little bit about your background. You have a really interesting background and how you ultimately, I won't ask you for the goat story. That's another episode for another time, but tell us about your background and how you wound up in this role.
So I blame my dad for being in this role because I wanted a Nintendo and he bought me an IBM PC. And I was like, all right, well, let's make the best we can out of this. So I got really curious doing things that probably shouldn't have been doing nowadays, but there weren't a lot of laws about it back then. So it was fun. In high school, I ended up accessing something I probably shouldn't have. Went to the principal and was like, hey, your county system is bunked. You need to fix it. So then that put me into IT at the age of 16 in the early 90s, dealing with that. And then I moved to college, which took me 7 years to get a regular degree. I hated every second of it, but while I did that, went to night school, became an EMT. That was a lot of fun. That was really rewarding. Then went into law enforcement, swore I'd never have a desk job. And we were on a crime scene and they were like, we can't solve this situation. And I was like, yes, you can, because if you check this, you'll see who logged in here and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, I'm on a desk job.
You're a cybercrime guy. Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
Did that for a while. A friend of mine reached out and said, hey, come work for me in Tampa General. They didn't have a security team quite yet, but come over, have some fun. And I was like, all right, made that jump. Worked in healthcare IT since then in various roles, manager of clinical applications, director of infrastructure, security engineer, director of cyber operations, and now I'm a CISO.
Wow, that's an amazing ride. It's always interesting to me. There's actually a fair number of CISOs or CIOs who at some point have made the EMT turn in their career. And that's been the like, oh, wow, healthcare, what a great mission. And that has driven a lot of the other decisions they've made. I've heard you talk about cybersecurity not just being a technical challenge, but fundamentally a communication challenge. And I've also heard you talk about a lot of cybersecurity culture. And I feel like all that probably goes together. Tell me what you mean by cybersecurity culture, how you've built that at Tampa General.
Again, we stand now on the shoulders of everybody who did the work before us. So what I'm going to say may sound irreverent, but it's not. So I appreciate the work everybody did. But up until a few years ago, cybersecurity was an offshoot of IT, and it was probably your most skilled people technically that were all nerds, just like me. And they lacked the communication skills or empathy or whatever you want to call it. It was just nerds in closets trying to keep things safe. And it was a huge help. They did a lot of good work, but it didn't help the way people viewed cybersecurity as a bunch of what I called no bots. Like, no, you can't do this. Just come in and just shut everything off or be a little grumpy about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. When your mission is to protect all day, it gets really irritating when you are trying to fix something and then someone just constantly trying to break it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. So what I did, and I'm not the only one to have done this, but the one thing I wanted to focus on to rebuild the image of the cybersecurity team where we're at, and they were great people, is add a little more empathy into the situation, add a little more, hey, we're here for you. We're not just here to tell you can't do things. We're here to help you be better at home, be better here, and just be safer all around. It was more of the Roadhouse theory, which is one of the speeches I give new people to my team. I was like, hey, you're going to be nice, right? You're going to be nice until it's time to not be nice. And then I had one kid who'd never seen the movie. He's like, well, and it was one of my favorite moments because he was like, well, when do I know when not to be nice? I said, you won't, I'll tell you. And then I was so happy I got to deliver that line. Right?
Yes, every time I'm flipping around the TV and that movie is on, it always stops and gets the rest of the movie. So I love that quote.
Really should be probably the mantra in most cybersecurity teams. Be nice until it's time to not be nice, and you won't really know when it's time to not be nice. It's not a personal affront. If you recommend something and the business decides not to do it, that doesn't mean they don't think you know what you're talking about. They just made a decision. There's decisions outside of cyber they still have to run the business, right? So it's getting them to shift out of that. And then from another culture perspective, getting the rest of IT on board with our mission. One of the things that the organization had struggled with was making a bunch of changes to Active Directory. As we all know how easy that is to screw up. LMNR, SMB version 1, all the old stuff that's just like, if they're in, you have it, it's over. They're going to get your domain admin. So I said, all right, we're having trouble. They don't understand how important this is. I spent 20 grand put on with a vendor, a class where I invited the entire infrastructure team. And I was like, hey, we're going to learn how to hack Active Directory, right? And it was 16-hour training live with people with live labs. And in the middle of it, the instructor was like, all right, we're going to use LMNR. We're going to show you how easy that is to hack AD. And so I had never seen this before, because you get alerts as a leader of all the RFCs that are getting entered. And as that class is going on, requests for changes are coming through to disable this, disable that. And it was like a huge win on that front. So for $20,000, it probably reduced $5 million of risk in one weekend.
And they were probably all just completely shocked at how easy it was for it to happen. That sometimes is what you have to do, like sort of a gentle way maybe of slapping somebody in the face and saying, everything's connected to everything else. You guys really have to help clean up your act for us to be able to clean up the organization's act. That's so cool.
And they were happy. They were like, this is the most fun we've had at work ever. Right. So now you're little hackers. Everybody was happy at the end of that. It helped a lot.
Maybe this is a good transition then from the supporting the organization. A lot of buzz around generative AI. I think you've done some stuff with Microsoft Copilot down there. How have you managed then the AI conversation and the mitigating risk and mitigating the potential for privacy loss with the use of AI? What's been your story?
So I have to give credit to our CIO, CMIO, and CTO, who they want to be in healthcare at the forefront of AI, which is a cool position to be in. It's scary as a CISO, right?
Right.
They all came to me and were like, hey, we want to turn this on. And I was like, oh boy. And I don't know if I over-explain something for your audience. I'm sorry. I'm just going to make sure we're on the same page. For those of you that don't know, when you turn Copilot on in your environment, it will act based on the permissions of the user that whatever you have access to, it's there, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone has overshared a document, especially in healthcare, a spreadsheet of a patient census, right? Or HR accidentally overshared someone's disciplinary report and they didn't lock that down quite right. And everybody has access to it. You may not know you have access to it right now, but as soon as you turn on Copilot, Copilot's going to know you have access to it. And so it allows you to make those mistakes at an exponential scale. And so what I did is I went to my boss and I was like, hey man, can you give me 2 weeks? I need 2 weeks to make sure we can lock down all the stuff we need to lock down in SharePoint and the OneDrive and whatever. And I showed him like, hey, ask Copilot this, because we turned it on for just them, right? I said, ask it how many documents you have access to with 9-digit numbers in it and consecutive. And he pulled it up and we had realized that someone had overshared an employee file with SSNs, right? And they're like, oh my God. So I was like, give me a week or two. I engaged Varonis, very helpful in that front. I said, here's my problem. And they're like, we can fix this. So my director of identity and Varonis and the rest of the cyber team, we resolved, I think, 3 million incorrect overshared file permissions in a week. And then put in an automated process where if it triggers one of the regulatory HIPAA, whatever, it'll automatically disallow someone from sharing that. It'll go back and remediate on its own. And then I went back to my boss and it's like, we can go now. And so it's been a win from there.
This concept, I talk about this all the time too. Sometimes what happens is we have processes that aren't really squared away. And then we add technology. And my analogy is we take a train wreck and we make it a super fast and efficient train wreck. And that's when we discover actually that the process is broken or the oversharing has happened or whatever the case may be. So I love that you sort of took the additional step up front and said, hold your horses before you turn this on. The response to that's been good. I mean, now that you're up and running, you're feeling comfortable with as much as you can about the risk that you pulled out of it.
For Copilot, yes. I have to give credit to, again, the CIO, CTO, CMIO. they have also stood up an AI governance committee, and they understood the benefits and they understood the dangers. And so what we do now is, as our security risk assessments come through, one of the questions we ask is, do you have generative AI in your product? And if the answer is yes, we still do our assessment. And if it passes our assessment, other than the AI component, it kicks off to this AI governance committee. And there's a whole ethics, feasibility, fidelity, so whole structure around that. It has to then go through all of that to make sure that we're all safe and happy and clear on that. And then if it goes to the AI committee, then it comes back and it adds a lot of bureaucracy, but it also keeps us, I feel, in a much better spot. Like it's going to sound weird. AI is one of the things I'm least worried about at our institution because of the guardrails that we put up and the way it's being done safely. Now, what might happen, and this is on my team, is vendors are really bad about throwing it in without telling you.
Yeah, actually, on Thursday morning, you wake up, it's software as a service product, and there's a button, and it's an AI thing. Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, here we go. What kind of can of worms did you just open? So that's created a lot of work for us on that front. So that's the biggest fear right now, is that something that's already gone through or we assessed from this scope has now changed to that scope.
Got it. Let me ask you, shift gears here and ask you a different question. You've led initiatives on, obviously, threat hunting, incident response. We've had quite the last few years, a lot of evolution in how the bad guys do their thing. Can you take me inside of a recent high pressure situation that you encountered and how your leadership philosophy guided the response?
Sure. So high pressure for us, most recent, we could talk about Change Healthcare, which every healthcare person is probably tired of hearing about. So I'm not going to give them PTSD, but we'll talk about, it was more regional issue, but one of the vendors that supplies blood to a lot of the hospitals in the Southeast was ransomed, right? They were down. And not only was that an issue on its own, because you've already got the PHI components and issues with logistics, but they literally couldn't deliver blood. And that will shut down a hospital very, very quickly. When you operate, you have to have so much blood on hand. If you're a level 1 trauma center like we are, you definitely need a lot of blood. So that sent us into an absolute, and by us, I mean the organization, absolute crisis mode. Now, I have to give credit to the organization because they stood up their incident command center. We stood up our incident command center. It was just constant, like, all right, how can we bring them back up? What level of connection can we keep with them? And you're just constantly having to weigh, right? So I can keep it shut off and I can sit up here as a cybersecurity expert and say, no, we're not turning this back on, blah, blah, blah. But there is a chance that someone could die if we make a decision, right, to not allow something to connect. They don't get blood soon enough. It's an adverse effect for the patient, right? So not only is it just, yeah, okay, and I'm not downplaying this. We could have an incident where PHI is released, which is serious, but now you've got real lives connected to real decisions. And
there's a balancing conversation there, right? Yeah.
And it woke my team up quickly. They're like, well, why don't we just shut it off? And I was like, well, if you do that, just so you're clear, we have to shut down an ER for a whole city. And they're like, right. So it helped drive the impact home for them of, yes, we're dealing with bits and bytes, but those bits and bytes at the end of the day have people attached to them with real consequences. And it woke a lot of people up.
I have 100 questions. Anytime we sit down, we always, we can go on for an hour. You've been to one of our summits. You're actually coming to one of the summits coming up, right, in Boston. How was your experience? Are you looking forward to Boston? Because everybody that's going to Boston seems to be looking forward to you.
So I didn't know what 229 is when I got the first invite. I believe James Case said, hey, why don't you come down to this? And I was like, okay, sure. James Case is one of my mentors along with Tony Lakin. And he was like, hey, come check this out. You'll like it. I was like, all right. And I got there. I didn't know what to expect. Certainly wasn't at all what I expected. I thought it'd be a sales pitch here, buy our products or whatever. And it turned into 3 days of some of the smartest people I've ever met, just discussing all the problems we had. I came out of there with more strategy and like, all right, here's what I'm doing wrong. Here's what I could do better. And then the lifelong, it's been a year, but the long-term contacts I have made from that is just ballooned. I now have at my hands just a quick text to 20 people. And I'm like, hey, y'all dealing with this? Yeah, I'm dealing with this. What are we doing? And so it's just a relief. Anytime I'm talking to some of my leaders on my team, they'll ask me, it's like, hey, go ask your group. What are they doing with this? Right? It's just a phenomenal thing. Anyone who gets the chance to go to a 229 event should. It is not, if you're skeptical, oh, it's some vendor pitch, whatever it is, it's not. There are vendors there, but they're there to help. They actually are. I was impressed with that too. They're like, here's how you could solve that problem. Maybe not even with our product, but this is how we're seeing people handle the situation. It was really cool.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I can tell you on the other end, there are people who tell me in the community all the time that they're really happy that they are able to reach out to you to ask questions to. Sometimes I think when you're in a community and the community continues to grow and you feel like, oh, I'm just taking a lot, you're actually giving a lot too, though. So thanks for being a part of that.
No problem.
You want to do a couple of bonus round questions? These are some questions that I steal from Tim Ferriss, and I like to use these once in a while. So let me see what's good. This is a good one. I'm looking at your background. What's a really unusual thing that you have that you really love? And this might also be like a habit or a tip or a trick or something that you do, but what's one really unusual thing that you love?
One unusual thing that I absolutely love, it's not unusual, but I love V8s. Big fan.
V8 is an engine?
Yeah, I drive fast as much as I can. I do autocross, I do track days. That has been a huge relief stress-wise for me, and it's really helped get me grounded. That's not really unusual though. So if we're talking about quirkiness, Dungeons and Dragons, I play 3 or 4 games every 2 weeks. It's a lot of fun that way. It helps with improv. It helps deal with crisis situations. Believe it or not, I'm actually probably trying to make a whole talk around how Dungeons and Dragons can make you a better leader.
I love this.
Yeah.
That's a great yes, because of the stressful experiences that you go through.
Yeah.
Okay, now maybe we've gone too far. But I love the idea of using that to help hone your crisis analysis, crisis reaction skills. That's very cool. Here's another one. I think we all know some young people who want to get into healthcare, cybersecurity. What's your best advice for them?
Man, my best advice for them, and it's tough, it's gonna suck to try to get into, right? Like, I know if anyone's telling you take these certs, get this degree, and you're in, it's not. The best advice, and it is a shame that it has to be this way, is find a mentor, find a group of people, join a local club, community. B-Sides is great, DEF CON. Outside of that, try to get a mentor. When you go to B-Sides or DEF CON, there's going to be industry professionals there. Be like, hey, I'm really interested in XYZ. Okay. They give a talk that you like, go talk to them. The last 2 or 3 people we hired came from that situation. Young people. It's like, hey, I really liked your talk. I was like, all right, can you help me get into the industry? And I'm like, okay, well, what have you done? And then I said to one of them, hey, do X, Y, and Z. Come back to me in 6 months and let's see where you're at. And I'll call me throughout the time if you have questions. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't talk to me, kid, but they kept in touch. They showed the initiative. They did X, Y, and Z. And the next opening we had, we were like, all right. I didn't say anything to my team. I was like, interview this person. Let me know what you think. Because their head was pretty squared away. And they came back. We made it higher. It's the best way I can think of it. The certs are good. The education's good. The drive is good. Unfortunately, everybody's doing that too. You got to make a connection. You got to set it to the top. And I hate that it sounds like a good old boy network. That's not what I'm saying. It is not that. It is just making connections.
It's making connections. It's experience too. I mean, the cert is great. It gives you some good fundamentals, but the being in the environment, getting the experience, and having I think the understanding expectation that you're going to have to go through. It's not hazing, but it's just like there's some period of time where you're going to have to do like real grunt work for a while before you can get to the kinds of jobs that you really want. So
no, that's actually a really good call out. And I'm quick to tell them like, look, your first cybersecurity job is going to be a grind. You're going to be doing tickets and something you didn't think it was. I promise you. And that's the other thing you sat down and was like, look, here's what a day really looks like for us. Are you sure this is what you want to do? Because it sounds sexy, right? But I doubt it is what you think it is. So yeah, that's a good call.
It's funny, we're hiring for a position right now, and we were just talking about don't sugarcoat it. Just tell them what the job is. If the job sucks, here's some things that suck about this job, like tell them up front. I think it helps weed out the people. They're not up for the challenge. I think it's sort of your version of go do these things and come back and tell me like how you're doing every couple of months. You can see, do they really want to grind it out or no?
For every 50 people I tell it to, one person actually does it, right?
Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate being on the show today. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Boston in May, and I feel like I'm going to see you probably a couple of other places. I think we might even have a webinar coming up together. But it's really good to see you today, and I'll catch up with you again really soon.
You too, man.
That's a wrap for this episode of UnHack the Podcast. Do me a favor and share this episode with your peers. And by the way, your feedback matters, so please subscribe and rate and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Drex DeFord. Thanks for spending some time with me today. And that's it for UnHack the Podcast. As always, stay a little paranoid. I'll see you around campus.